afternoon on this very snowy for Knoxville day, and I want you to know that we have this man here to thank for the snow, because 2 days ago from Florida, he texted me and said, it would be awesome if you all had snow for me. I go, oh yeah, right, don't even say that word. Yesterday, what icon was appearing in my weather app? A snowflake. And I said to him, what did you do? And then if you notice throughout the day, the little snowflakes kept growing across the time and everything. So first of all, I think we need to give a round of applause for the man who brought snow to Knoxville, all right? Yeah. And also, thank you to Dr. Childers and to Lauren Ziegler for organizing our lunch. We realized that her class and my class were also staying here for the entire 3-hour span. It's like, oh my gosh, they need to be fed. So they ordered chili, not expecting on Tuesday that we would have snow. So this has just all worked out to be a great day of professional development. So a little bit of backstory, and you can read the title slide here to see exactly who Chase Daniels is. But about a year and a half ago, and we're Alex in the back there, we started talking about a project looking at community policing and how that might work on social media and looking at privacy issues, etc. And on Twitter, I was following the Twitter handle Pasco Sheriff, as well as watching Live PD. Does anybody else in here watch Live PD or know about Live? All right, we've got some Live PD fans, so you're familiar with Pasco County Sheriff. Yeah, so I was on social media with their admins and said I'd like to talk to you more about this. And so I don't know if it was for good or for ill, but they gave me Chase's email address, and I contacted him and we started talking. And then we did an interview with him about a year ago, Alex and I did, on how the hashtag 9 p.m. routine got started and how it works in with their community policing initiative and how they're using social media and how it's just taken off. It is a fascinating story. And so when he actually mentioned that he would love to come be part of Social Media Week, and so when we were planning in the fall, I said, hey, Dr. Childers, I've got a guest speaker for you. So whether you are on the PR side, or I don't know who else might have in here besides advertising, mine and Dr. Childers students and stuff, but everything that you hear about branding, everything that we teach you, now you're going to hear how it's applied to a organization like a Pasco County Sheriff. So Chase, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much for the invite. Can everyone hear me? They gave me one of these lapel mics because I like to wander, so I didn't want to be tied to the podium. So first of all, thank you for having me. Again, Chase Daniels. I'm with the Pasco County Sheriff's Office in Florida. This will be a test later, but does anyone know where Pasco County actually is on a map of Florida? I got 2 people, 3 people. Well, I think you kind of cheat, because I think I told you this earlier. So we are essentially, for who knows where Tampa is on our Gulf Coast. So we are the hat on top of Tampa Bay. So we've got, Tampa Bay is made up of Pinellas and Hillsborough counties. We are the hat that sits on top of both of those counties. We are a county of about 550,000 people. We are actually one of the most rapidly growing counties in the state of Florida. I believe we have been in the top 5 the last several census designations for growing. And like I said, we have, in the 5 years that I have been in Pasco County, we have grown from about 400,000 to 550,000 in those 5 years. So needless to say, we are always trying to keep up with how we manage ourselves with community relations, community outreach, with the new citizens that come in that need to know about their sheriff's office or who their sheriff is or who to call for what or what their sheriff's office function is. That is our responsibility every day, to reach out to those 550,000 people, even those new people who have only been here for a few minutes. So that is where my role falls in. So I have the Public Information Office, as well as our social media team and our community engagement team. So I wanted to start off just very, very briefly with an introduction of why we do what we do on social media and why we put so much time and effort into our social media channels. So we believe, that we tell a story. We are our own storytellers. Obviously, we are responsible to the 550,000 people of Pasco County. I work for an elected sheriff, so they have the ability every 4 years to hold the sheriff accountable for his actions or for the actions of the department. So we believe that it's important to inform the public of those actions of the sheriff's office. Those aren't always positive. Those aren't always negative. We do like to share, obviously, our positive stories, our trainings, our new equipment, you name it. But again, whenever something does happen, whenever it's one of those tragic events, whenever there is a road closure, whenever there is some kind of investigation going on with a homicide, that is also our responsibility to inform our public and keep them abreast of what is going on in Pasco County. And through that, we also ultimately want to create those connections with the community we serve. So I always tell our PIO office that, that our role is in 3 prongs. So the first prong is inform. And literally on these graphics, because Dr. Hoy challenged me to make a more engaging PowerPoint, the graphics that you will see on the next couple of slides, I literally typed in the 3 words that I will do, and this is the first graphic that popped up on Google. So you now have 46 ways to inform your marketing strategy with data. Unfortunately, I will not share with you 46 ways today. But so we seek to inform our public, we seek to engage with our public, and we seek to promote the Sheriff's Office to the public. It's our IEP approach: inform, engage, promote. So how do we do each of these? Obviously, with informing, as I was just sharing with you, we have an obligation to tell the people of Pasco County what is going on in their Sheriff's Office and in their community. We do that through social media. Anytime that there is any kind of critical incident, anytime the sheriff does a press conference, that is something you will see us live stream on Facebook and Twitter. We also engage on YouTube, Snapchat, TikTok, and Instagram. We are relatively new adopters to the world of TikTok, but it has actually, in just a short period of time, become our largest social media platform. We actually have more people on TikTok than we do any of our other platforms. And again, it is, especially as our county continues to trend younger and younger, it is the best way we've found to reach, especially that 16 to 25 demographic, which I think most people here in the room fall in that demographic. So if you have a TikTok, go follow us. You'll get a lot of videos of dogs, but everyone seems to like the dogs. So we also inform through press conferences. As I mentioned, we will live stream every press conference the sheriff or one of our members of command staff does on our social media accounts. We also have a robust media market in Tampa Bay, but we believe it is our responsibility, in addition to giving information to the media, to also share that directly with our citizens. So in addition to providing those media alerts and media updates, we will also provide all of that information. The same information we provide the media, you will see posted on our social media platforms. The sheriff believes very strongly that it is our responsibility to tell our public, and if it's something that we are going to release to the media, it's also something we should release to the public. Engage. So this is a big role of our social media coordinators. So who here has ever followed along one of our tweet-alongs? All right, so we got one hand in the back. So there is one of those that happened yesterday. If anyone's interested to go see what that looks like, that is something that we started several years ago, actually before we even began our experience with Live PD, because we were under the impression that a lot of folks had no idea what the day in the life of a law enforcement officer looked like. If I asked a room such as this what law enforcement looks like, give me a few examples of what do you think a law enforcement officer does every day. Come on, someone shout something out. Traffic stops, okay. Paperwork, okay. Anyone else? Anyone else want to take a guess? What was that? Drunk people, yes. So those are the typical responses I got. I got paperwork, traffic stops, and arrest people. What I found was there was not a lot of awareness of community policing that our officers do. Stopping to play basketball in the streets with a group of kids that they see, stopping at the local business just to check in and make sure that they have everything they need and they feel protected and they feel safe. Checking in on a victim of a crime from a couple of days ago, just stopping in during their shift to make sure that they feel that they have everything they need. So that's why we started tweet-alongs, because we believed it was important. If we were going to ask our community to engage with us and trust us, we need to show them what a day in the life of a law enforcement officer actually looks like. And it is so much more than traffic stops, paperwork, and arresting people. Yes, all those things happen, but there is so much more that we were finding people weren't aware that we were doing. So that's why we started tweet-alongs. And literally what that is one of our staff members embeds with a deputy for their shift. And we try to show the different areas of our law enforcement agency, not just traffic stops, paperwork, and arrests, but yesterday we followed along our code enforcement deputy. Yes, in Pasco County we have code enforcement under us, in addition to partnering with our county. We also have tweeted along with our forensics unit to see what forensics looks like. We follow along with our canine officers to see what that looks like. We try to show people that law enforcement is so much more than just arresting people or making traffic stops. We also do that through the 9 p.m. routine, which I'll talk a little more about later, but that is one of our key ways of creating engagement as well. And as I said, the goal is, to create long-lasting relationships with the community we serve. And that is really our mission at the end of the day, is to create those relationships with the community we serve. And then, of course, the third stool, or the third leg of this stool, is promote. So we do this primarily through social media, but also traditional media. We will do things like media events and media awareness to try to generate stories about some of the things that are going on. But something that we also do, and you guys will see this on social media next week, we have a couple new canines coming on board. So we are going to introduce them via our social media platforms. We're going to have the sheriff showing off the canines, the work they do. But this promotion, it's also why we did shows such as Cops. We are still engaged with PD Cam. It's why we did live PD. So, and again, one of our main functions is that we want to promote the good work that our men and women do. Again, the idea of what a law enforcement officer does is something we want to expand. We want to expand that awareness, that knowledge of what that day in the life looks like, so we can tell those stories about the good things our men and women are doing every day. So obviously, one of the challenges is, okay, if we're going to start this social media revamp, how on earth do we build an audience? So 4 years ago, Sheriff Nacco entrusted me with recreating our social media platform. It was what I like to call the bad news bears of social media. It was traffic stops, it was arrests, it was road closures. It was just not a lot of fun. And I know that's weird coming from a government agency that we're looking for fun, but what we found as we would talk in our communities is people would not follow the sheriff's office because they didn't care about road closures. They didn't necessarily care about arrests. It wasn't something that was impacting them. But they also had a very limited awareness, as I said before, about what our law enforcement officers do. So we decided that it was time to revamp and recreate our social media platforms. Whenever I started this, I did not just talk to other law enforcement agencies. I know Dr. Hoy talks a lot about branding and marketing. I talked to, and everyone in this room is going to hate me for this, but I talked to the University of Florida and what they are doing on Twitter to engage with prospective students. I talked to the Tampa Bay Rays, Orlando City Soccer Club. I talked to entertainers. I talked to you name it, because we didn't want to just be a traditional law enforcement account. We wanted to be more than that. We wanted to be engaging. And again, just as all of those people that I talked to had a strategy or a goal. So obviously for the University of Florida and Orlando City, they're trying to sell tickets. They're trying to create fans. For the entertainers and their representatives I talked to, they are trying to build a brand. They're trying to maintain their status as an entertainer. So I learned from those. And so the first thing that we came up with is content is king. I can have the best social media strategy in the world. I can have the most dynamic social media audience in the world. But if it goes blank and is hidden for days at a time while I'm waiting for someone to send me a picture, not a whole lot of good is going to come of that. So that is one of the things that we have really stressed throughout our agency, is content is king. And again, it's not just content of mugshots. It's not just content of arrest information, but it's content of those deputies playing basketball in the street. It's content of our canine officers showing their lighter side. And again, it's why I am always, probably to an annoying level, every time I go to a read-off, or I talk to one of our captains, or I talk to one of our command staff, asking for pictures. It is so important to have content. Again, we've seen some of these other agencies that talk about road closures. They talk about arrests. That was us, but that is not a content that is really going to engage an audience. Create a brand, and frankly, create fans. We want there to be fans of the Pasco Sheriff's Office. We hope those fans live in Pasco County. We hope that they are citizens, but again, we want them to be more than just citizens. It is their sheriff's office, and we want them to feel that sense of ownership and sense of pride through seeing what they're doing. And again, as I've talked about a lot, but it's worth repeating, and I put it in bold for this reason, that we do want to help change that perception of law enforcement. The role of a deputy is so much more than anyone realizes. And our agency has so many other things besides just the deputies. So you're talking about our child protective investigators, our HR staff, our air unit, our marine unit. we are so much more than just men and women that sit in the car and do traffic stops. So, again, whenever it comes to building an audience, I also subscribe to the belief of the lowest common denominator approach to social media. What that means to me is I want us to be culturally relevant in our post. I do not particularly care if Dr. Hoy is following us because she likes our canines, if you are following us because you happen to like the Tampa Bay Rays, and if 10 other people in this room are following us because they saw us make that tweet about don't shoot at a hurricane. The fact of the matter is you are following us, you're engaged with us, and there is a method to that madness. Because whenever that, God forbid, a bad day happens in Pasco County, and we are trying to get out pertinent information, we are trying to get an evacuation order issued for a hurricane, we are trying to set up a reunion point or a media staging area for a critical incident, we will have a built-in engaged audience that can help keep our public safe and share those messaging. So we don't just have to rely on the traditional media outlets to get that information out. We don't just have to rely on someone to hopefully be on their computer or on Twitter. Well, don't say on Twitter. Take that back. Scratch that part out. So we don't have to rely on someone to be sitting at their TVs, to be sitting at their desk to get that information and hope that they happen to see that breaking news alert on that right media station that covered that. We now can help amplify our message. And again, God forbid that bad day occurs, but when and if it does, we've got an engaged audience that will share those messages. And it's the same thing that happened during Hurricane Irma. Again, with the don't shoot at the hurricane tweet, that took off. We gained so many new followers, but what we found is those new followers, a lot of whom were in Pasco County and surrounding area, right after that we started tweeting shelter and evacuation info. Previous to that tweet, we were lucky to get a handful of retweets. We started getting hundreds and thousands of retweets on shelter and evacuation info. Training that audience to be engaged and to be active is huge for us. And again, it all goes back to that public safety side as well. And again, as I said, our audience is always growing. So we are north of 500,000 people on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at this point. As I mentioned, TikTok is its own set of followers, but we're north of 400,000 on there. So our social media audience is a little over 1 million people at this point. We engage with roughly 1.5 to 2 million unique people a day on social media platforms as well. So we know that we've got that engaged audience that if we do need to call them to action, they are engaged and they are ready to do it. And again, I'm going to hurry through this because I spend a lot of time talking about how we change perceptions. It's something, again, I'm very passionate about. I think it is the most important thing we do. So, again, I get asked a lot, though, is this working? You know, it's silly to have a law enforcement agency talking about having fun on social media or to talk about engaging people. So is it working? So I came with a list of well-known places in Florida. Raise of hands. Who knows Miami? Knows where Miami is? All right, everyone. Orlando. Jacksonville. Okay. Key West. Still pretty good. Tampa. Still pretty good. St. Petersburg. Losing some people. St. Petersburg is across the bay from Tampa. And then, again, I would argue that Pasco County is becoming one of those places. We had a community meet and greet event last January where we had over 5,000 people in attendance. We had people from foreign countries as far away as Europe and Asia. We had people from Canada. We are also, again, one of the largest social media audience out of law enforcement in the state of Florida is the Pasco County Sheriff's Office. So we have more combined followers on our social media platforms than those well-known places like Miami, like Orlando, like Jacksonville. So we believe that what we're doing is working. And again, for those of you who are wondering where on earth Pasco County is this pointer work? Yep, that is us in the red. That is Pinellas County, that's Hillsborough County. I told you we're a hat. So that is Pasco County. So we are essentially South Central Florida. For those of you who are wondering where Orlando is about here. So, FYI. So, with all that said and kind of that background on what we do and how we do, I did want to talk about the 9 p.m. routine specifically. Does anyone here know what the 9 p.m. routine is? Has anyone ever engaged with it, done it? see 3 hands, 4 hands. All right, I'm moving up in the world. So the 9 p.m. routine is one of the things that was one of our first initial creations whenever we started this social media revamp. Because in talking to all those people that I mentioned before, the athletics, the entertainers, the anything essentially that I could talk to, one of the things that kept coming back to me in addition to content is creating engagement in solving a problem. For instance, there were some social media influencers that would post their workout photos every morning to encourage people to work out. They were partnering with a workout company, they were partnering with a Peloton or what have you. So they created engagement by posting a workout photo every morning and challenging people to post their workout photos as well, obviously hoping those people would go to the same company that they were branding and marketing for. So during that time period, we were unfortunately facing a very large issue of unlocked auto burglaries. Who here locks their doors every single night? Anyone who is not raising their hand, please lock your doors. It is the easiest way you can prevent crime, and that's my crime prevention spiel for this. But we had a lot of people who were unfortunately becoming the victims of crime because they were leaving their auto doors unlocked. It's very simple for people who are going through a neighborhood to come pull your car door, and if it opens, they grab whatever is left in the cup holder. Unfortunately, they are finding things like guns, like computers, like cell phones, like cash. It is not just the change in those crumpled up receipts you have in your cup holder, but they were getting some very serious and some very dangerous items. So in using this approach and what I learned about the engagement and challenging people to do something and engage back with you, we created this call and response type approach to our social media. I know that's traditionally used in music. You hear it a lot. You hear it right across the street there at Neyland Stadium every Saturday. It's a call and response type. Everyone yells. There's a chant back. Everyone engages in it. It creates a groundswell. So we started challenging people to lock their doors every night, and we created the 9 p.m. routine. Some people ask me why 9 p.m.? So initially it was going to be the 10 p.m. routine, but we decided that was probably too late because we wanted to catch people as they are going to bed, but not after they've already put down their phone for the night. Because again, if you put down your phone for the night, I can't engage you, I can't interact with you. And it doesn't do me a whole lot of good to remind you after you've already gone to bed to go back and check and make sure your doors are locked. So we thought about the 7 p.m. routine. Seemed a bit too early. People are still out, people are still eating. A little early to begin that reminder. So we settled on 9 p.m. because it seemed like a good time where people are at home with their families, with their loved ones. And it seemed like it was an appropriate time that they would still be on their phone, watching TV or what have you, getting ready for bed, but would not have already gone to bed. So the 9 p.m. routine has taken off and become a phenomenon of its own. At last count, we have more than 100 different agencies that now employ the social media trend every night. Those agencies stretch to Europe and Canada and Mexico and across the United States. And then obviously, we do it every night in Pasco County as well. And through that, we truly believe that people feel more connected to the sheriff's office because it gives us a chance to engage with people. So how the 9 p.m. routine works, and I've got some graphics here that'll show you. So how it works is, sorry, I'm breaking everything apparently. My bad. Sorry, guys. Quickest PowerPoint ever. You know all of this information now. There'll be a test later, but this does not count as a review. So how the 9 p.m. routine works is, so typically at 9 p.m. every night, you will see this almost exact tweet and this graphic on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and typically Snapchat as well. And what we do with this is, again, it is a reminder, don't forget to lock your doors. Hashtag 9 p.m. routine. We then start getting responses back. And again, when this started, I was happy to get a handful of responses, but now, I guarantee you I could go on our Twitter account right now and there is probably someone from somewhere in Europe that is checking in and telling us they locked their doors. The 9 p.m. routine lasts all day at this point. People start checking in at 3 p.m. and they say, oh, Germany is checked in. So it looks a little something like this. So we get a tweet back to us. So this is Janie with a lot of numbers behind her name. She is locked up in Missouri, 9 p.m. routine. So what we do, we try to engage with as many people as we possibly can every single night on this. For those of you who have your notifications turned on, don't follow us with notifications on. Your phone will hate you for it, and you will probably hate me for it. But we try to engage with every single person we can, because again, engaging with someone makes them feel connected. And what we also do, and this is something that we created about a year into the 9 p.m. routine, literally just with the discussion of, we were wondering at that point how many states we were reaching every night. So not only does Missouri then get her shout out here, we also will then go through an app we have, it's literally just a country's bin app, and we will color in Missouri green. And then once we get all 50 states, we'll send out some free t-shirts through our charity store or what have you to, again, create fans. This is something that I've talked a lot about turning social media into a game for people. It's the same reason. Has anyone ever wondered why people tweet at McDonald's? Who here has tweeted at McDonald's or Wendy's or a fast food place? Come on, there's more hands than that. You guys are all lying to me if you say you haven't done it. Or you tweet at your favorite celebrities, or you retweet something they post. Have you ever wondered why? You know, why tweet at McDonald's? McDonald's is a Fortune 500 company. It's manned by a person behind the computer screen. Why do you feel connected enough to McDonald's that you're interested in following them on Instagram and Twitter, that you're interested in engaging with them? We believe it is because we create this community, that we give people something back. They are not just reaching out to us and we are ignoring it. Everyone who sends us a tweet, as long as it is not something that violates one of our policy or something, at the very least, if we don't quote tweet you and we don't give you a response, we will give you a like. No one ever feels like they're ignored by our social media channel. And through that, we have continued to create this engagement. And I can tell you as well, I know different strategies on this. We are also very liberal followers. We, again, try to challenge people to build our audience. We will do things like, hey, if you're watching this tweet along tonight, you know, while they're on their way to the next call, everyone who retweets this will follow you back. We follow something like 20,000 people. And again, it is because it makes people feel like they're part of a team. It makes people feel like they're part of something that they want to be a part of. And it has turned the sheriff's office from just those people you call 911 with whenever something is going wrong to people that you now engage with every night. And then on top of that, not only do you engage with our social media coordinators every night, but then you see our K-9 deputies out doing good work in the community. You see one of our officer-friendly corporals out playing basketball in the community. And it is a stunning change that we have seen in our social media platform. So I wanted to be done, and I hit it right on at 30 minutes because I want to leave time for Q&A because I am best, again, when engaging with people. So I wanted to talk to you about the questions you have, and again, just our strategy in general, because I think it works. I think we have created a game of this, but I think we have also created meaningful, thoughtful engagement with people that has helped to, at least in Pasco County, change the perception of law enforcement and provide a little more knowledge in law enforcement. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. So actually, it's funny. Last night, I was at a dinner with Knoxville PD and the University of Tennessee Police, where we were discussing this and discussing our strategies and ways to implement it. We are also hosting a couple of shadow community relations staff from some of our other area sheriff's offices next week to do this. So this is certainly something that we want to share. We don't claim ownership of this. It's something that we think, again, if we can help change those perceptions, not just in Pasco County, which we have seen a lot of success with, but across the nation. You know, and unfortunately, we do work in a agency and in a profession where we understand there is not always the best perception of it. Something I like to tell a lot of people is, so for instance, I'll pick on real estate. Anyone here interested in being a real estate agent? No. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to pick one person. What do you want to do? What do you want to do after this? So work in an advertising agency. Makes sense, ad and PR. So let's say that every time an advertising agency had a bad campaign, that it reflected negatively on the entire advertising community. That one campaign, that one bomb of a Super Bowl ad made no one want to hire any other ad firm anywhere in America because you can't trust them because that one Super Bowl commercial was so bad. That is what we find in law enforcement, unfortunately. Something that happens in Chicago, Illinois, or New Orleans, or something even happens in our own state, in Orlando or in Inverness, Florida. Unfortunately, what we find is we get blamed for it. Something that is completely outside of our jurisdiction, outside of our hands. I can't speak to that case because our guys were 3,000 miles away when that incident unfolded. Unfortunately, we still will see people who will not trust law enforcement because of that. So that is what we try to do with our social media too, is show that, hey, not all law enforcement is that perception you may have or that bad incident that may have happened. You know, there are a lot of guys and women doing a lot of good things every day, not just nationally, but in their own communities, making a difference, and that's our goal. But to answer your question, sir, we absolutely will share this with anyone who asks because we think it's important to help build that community. Yes, sir. By the way, go Braves. So very, very good question, because that is an issue that we had to address as our audience took off. It was probably an unintended consequence that we had never envisioned that someone would take to Twitter to report an emergency. So what happens now, we have auto-reply messages set up on all of our social media platforms. So if you message us, you're going to get a message back automatically stating that the account is not monitored 24/7. If it's an emergency, to call 911. If it's not an emergency, messages will be received in the order, or will be returned in the order they're received. So we have created that as a hopeful fail-safe. We also have it in all of our social media profiles as well to call 911. And we also, whenever our social media coordinators are on work, so people who actually manage those accounts on a day-to-day basis, whenever they are on shift, if they get one of those messages, they will screenshot it, provide it to the appropriate folks, but then also reply back with a message of please call 911. Thankfully, we haven't had too many, not as many as you would think, but we do get enough that we implemented that protocol. And again, it's not perfect because we can't control when someone does message us, but we try to have those procedures in place so it just doesn't go unanswered and they think, oh, well, maybe they're working on it. No, they get an automatic message right back telling them that they need to call 911 if it is an emergency. Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. So the best example I have is unlocked auto burglaries, because that's a 9 p.m. routine. So since we introduced the 9 p.m. routine, our unlocked auto thefts have actually dropped by 66% in Pasco County. So again, there's a lot of reasons for that. You know, we obviously, because we also cross-brand the 9 p.m. routine. So it is not now just something we do on social media. It is something that whenever we're putting signboards in a community that has been hit with a rash of burglaries, we now put that up and we use that hashtag. We've got crime prevention tips and techniques that we hand out using that hashtag. But we have seen that 66% reduction. And I can tell you anecdotally, I don't have numbers on this, but to talk to our men and women, the reaction we receive in the community has been nothing but positive and increased so much, because now people see that they are just more than arrest paperwork and traffic stops, as was said earlier. They are now people that people get to see them engage in the community. They get to see a video. They get to ask the deputy a question. That's something we do during tweet-alongs, is we allow people to ask deputies questions. Why did you get into law enforcement? What is your favorite movie? Because at the end of the day, the message that we're trying to get through to people is, at the end of the day, when their shift is done, they become brothers and fathers and husbands and mothers and sisters and aunts and uncles and kids, just like everyone else, and their profession does not define them. So we again try to kind of peel back that picture and go behind the badge a little bit. on what that looks like. Yes, ma'am.
And if we could wait just a minute.
Oh, mics?
Dr.
Yep.
Childress had asked to do the back room. You have to speak into this.
Oh, no. Okay. Wow. So you said you have a TikTok. What? what? What kind of content do you put on your TikTok?
So TikTok is a funny story, and I get that reaction a lot when I tell people that we have a TikTok account. But 425,000 people will share with you that it is a thing. And I think someone probably just pulled it up there in the audience. So our TikTok is full of, frankly, a lot of the same content that we have on our Twitter and our Facebook and our Instagram. But we do target it. Again, there are different voices to our different platforms. Facebook is obviously going to be more news-oriented. It is where primarily our audience is a little bit older. They want to know road closure notifications. They want to know major issues. They want to see the dogs, but they don't necessarily want their timeline flooded with 150 tweets in an hour. Poor Dr. Hoy. So Twitter, again, is a little more engaging, but especially Instagram and TikTok, we tend to go even lighter, even with a younger audience. TikTok is actually one of the fastest growing social media platforms in the world. In 2018, it was downloaded, again, in that demographic of 16 to 25-year-olds, it was downloaded more times than Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and Snapchat combined worldwide in 2018. So it is a massively growing platform. So we know the audience trends younger on TikTok, so we try to focus on things like our canines and the work we're doing there, because what we're trying to do with that platform is, again, that's not necessarily the same platform that is going to be caring about road closures or about arrests or about ongoing investigations. But they are people who are in high school, who are making the decision to go to college, who are in college and maybe trying to figure out what they want to do with their career. We like to highlight the different sides of law enforcement there. We show a lot of our canines, our Marine unit, our forensics there, because again, we know those are people that are probably making decisions that will impact the rest of their lives. And if we can reach them at that point and show them that, again, law enforcement is something to consider. It's not just writing tickets or it's not just traffic stops, but hey, if you're interested in cybersecurity, did you know the Pasco Sheriff's Office has a cybersecurity section? Those are the kind of things that we try to highlight on TikTok to catch those people as they're making those decisions, and again, show that law enforcement is more than just what they may have thought of, and it's a career path that encompasses so much more than just sitting in a patrol car and making arrests or doing paperwork. But go follow us on TikTok. People love that. Other questions? Yes, ma'am. Oh, sorry, wait. We gotta wait for the mic.
Oh,
sorry.
gosh.
I don't want to get yelled at.
What has been the response from the deputies? Have they seen a difference when they're interacting with communities since you have started engagement on a different level?
Absolutely. So that is something that I talked a lot about with Knoxville last night and UT Police, because I can tell you, whenever this started, you want me to send you pictures of me doing what? You want me to send you pictures how often? It was a lot of pulling teeth. And again, as I go back to content is king. So any content is better than no content, and if I have to pull teeth to get content, then we will pull teeth. But you all can tell whenever something is posted on social media when the person is doing it willingly or unwillingly. That comes through. If I am pulling your teeth and forcing you to do something, that is going to come through in everything I post. So we always try to get people that want to buy in, that have bought in to send us their pictures. But it was a slow burn. You know, it initially started with, I had one or two deputies who were willing to do tweet-alongs. You know, the idea of having, wait, you want someone in the car with me this entire shift, and they want me to do videos, and they want me to answer questions, and I don't know how I feel about that. But over time, people in the community started noticing. They started telling people, hey, I saw that tweet-along you did, thank you so much, or hey, you're that deputy from there. They started getting thank you cards into our mailbox. It's those things that have really helped to change the perception. And again, we couldn't do that without our community buying into, them sending the thank you cards, them stopping the deputies on the streets to tell them that, hey, I saw you on that tweet along, or I saw you in that YouTube video, or I saw you on TikTok, makes a world of difference. And it has even now gotten to the point where we actually have PIO liaisons in each of our districts that are people who, sorry, knocking down everything here, that in addition to their daily duties and their daily shift responsibilities, those are people that are helping us produce this content. Because obviously we can't be everywhere in a very large county, so we now have liaisons in each of our districts set up to make sure that we are getting this content. And the agency has wholly bought in, but I can tell you it also is a massive help. I have talked to some agencies where every tweet they send has to be approved by the sheriff or the chief of police. I can tell you from my belief that doesn't work, because social media is such a dynamic, changing world that tweet that you had that was really, really witty about that trending hashtag, by the time your chief or your sheriff signs off on it 3 days later, well, you might as well have not even sent it. So we have been blessed to have a dynamic sheriff who understands the role of social media, understands the changing world and the rapid change that is social media. So we actually provide our social media coordinators full access. They don't have to get their tweets approved by anyone. They don't have to get their content approved by anyone. Obviously, we have guidelines that they follow. I actually have a social media manual that they subscribe to whenever they take the job. But we give them full latitude, because it is important as those trends are changing. Because hey, that trend on TikTok with Canine Monday or Tongue Out Tuesday or something may not be trending by the time we can get the sheriff's ear to look at a video 2 or 3 days later. So that is also something that helped, is we had buy-in from the sheriff and from the very top to allow us to do this. And that kind of institutional support goes so far, because again, we couldn't do what we do. We couldn't engage with thousands of people every single night on the 9 p.m. routine if we had to run every single tweet that we were sending through the sheriff or something like that. So that institutional support is a huge help, in having that buy-in at the top level really helped us. And that's something that I encourage anyone, for those of you who want to go into PR and marketing, especially in the social media world, whenever you are talking to your clients or your employer, make sure that they know how dynamic and changing that world is. Because if you are in a company that the CEO wants to sign off on every tweet, you're going to be tweeting every 2 or 3 days if you're lucky, and that is how your content gets lost. I read a study once that the average shelf life of a tweet, I'm not telling you this, but I'm telling you this because everything you say will last forever. I can promise you that. Whenever I look at applicants, we get social media history. We see what they're posting. So that is a very serious thing. So I don't want to take away from that. But the average lifespan of one of our tweets or one of our Facebook posts that stays on top of people's news feeds and doesn't get lost in one of those see more info that no one ever clicks and you just kind of scroll to the top of your Instagram, it's about 30 minutes. So that is why we post roughly on Twitter. You will see us post about every 30 minutes. And our goal is, again, we don't believe we're catching everyone with every single tweet we send, but it is to keep us relevant, to keep us in people's news feeds, to keep us on people's minds as what we're doing. But again, anyone who's looking to go into advertising, PR, that's something I would always strongly encourage you to have that conversation with your employer or with your client. Trust the social media person, trust the advertising person. You know what, if they screw up and they say something, they tweet something they shouldn't, you can deal with that. But don't be that micromanager that requires you to go through 16 layers of approval to send a tweet, because you'll never be relevant or engaging at that point. Other questions?
Yeah, I had a question specifically surrounding the 9 p.m. routine thing. Do you ever worry about oversaturating your follower base? So, I guess one of your strategies as a sheriff officer would be to inform people in the area. And just personally, I know if somebody tweets a lot, I don't necessarily unfollow them every time, but I may mute you. Mm-hmm. So if it's just a lot of tweeting. Do you ever worry about maybe over-tweeting and that people around you may mute your account, and then if you have an active situation or something very pressing, maybe that stakeholder group doesn't see them? How do you strike a balance between engaging your follower base, but also running, I guess, a very germane and sometimes account that's just meant to inform? How do you do? What's your game plan for that?
Yeah, so that is a very good question. Something that we have put a lot of time and thought in. I can tell you that is something that we thought about whenever we started this. We looked at, well, hey, maybe do we create an @Pasco Sheriff Breaking News Twitter account so people can follow the road closures. But what we found with that is something we used to have is we had several different accounts. We had an HR account, we had an SRO account, which is our school resource officers. We had our general account, we had a Canine Association account. But what we found is we were segmenting our audience at that point. So we were allowing people that only cared about our canines to follow our canines, but they were missing all the cool stuff that we're doing with recidivism reduction in jail and all of our inmate work programs. They were missing our Marine unit because our audience was segmented to what their interests were. So we got rid of all those extra accounts. So we had talked about, well, hey, do we want to allow for a segmentation of Twitter, for instance, with that Pasco Sheriff breaking? But what we decided to do, because again, that is a concern of ours, it's something that we are always keeping an eye on. If we were to start getting a lot of people reaching out saying, hey, I've got a concern about this, something we would again look at. But what we found is a lot of those people were probably of the older demographic, no offense intended, but they were the older demographic, and that is why we kept our Facebook with that very different level of messaging. So we've always got that platform more geared to, we try to follow AP style on Facebook whenever we're writing a media alert. Instead of a post every 30 minutes, there may be 3 or 4 posts a day on Facebook. So we kind of change the audiences and the voices of our platforms to enable that. So that way, hey, those people who want a high engage, high tweeting account, go follow us on Twitter. But if you're just looking for the news or you're just looking for a road closure, well, hey, Facebook's more going to be your platform. And that is actually something that we message fairly frequently on all of our accounts. So we'll put, for instance, on our Facebook page, hey, if you want to engage with us more, if you want to see tweet-alongs, make sure you go follow us on our Twitter account or our Instagram. We put on Twitter, hey, if you are just looking for news and information, go make sure you're following us on Facebook. So we try to keep that, our audience not segmented, but we also are very cognizant of oversaturation, losing our audience. So that's where we try to keep those different voices on those different platforms for that reason. By the way, I like these good water breaks while Maria runs in the back and forth of the room.
So if you could go back to when you first started this account, rebranding the account, is there advice that you would give yourself of what to do differently? A lot of our students are about to go into internships, or I know some of my students have been handed social media accounts and said, do something with this. What would you tell yourself? What advice would you give yourself?
Absolutely. So I do not shy away from the fact that we have made mistakes. Everyone is going to. You are going to tweet something that you probably shouldn't have, and you're going to get a call from your boss, why did you tweet that? So we are always changing and adapting. For instance, I added a policy a couple months ago for our social media team, as the world is constantly changing. So now what used to be considered the OK sign has now been co-opted, and so you've got far-right, white nationalists and stuff using that. So that is now something that we look at and we say, hey, we're not going to engage with Twitter accounts that put that in their tweets, because we don't know what intention. We don't know if they're trying to say OK. We don't know if they're trying to say something different. We're not going to engage with Twitter accounts of those kind of things. And it's the same thing whenever it comes to the GIFs. We always tell our team to watch GIFs fully, because there are always things that can pop up, things that are unexpected. And the reason we do that is because we once interacted and engaged during a 9 p.m. routine with a GIF that was at the very end was full of curse words, and we got called out on it, rightfully so. So we are always learning and adapting. But I think the number one thing that I would tell anyone that is starting off in the world of social media, in the world of PR, is you're always going to be learning. Your strategy will always be changing. It'll always be moving. Because again, whenever we started this rebrand, there were some things that we could tweet about that, hey, now as our world evolves and our world changes, those are things that you can't do and you can't engage with anymore, as I just described a couple of those things. It is critically important to stay on top of those emerging trends, because you never want to become the story yourself. And unfortunately, we have become the story before. And it's also to always think of the worst possible way someone could perceive a picture or a post. That's something I always tell our social media team that, hey, if you have a question about if something is good to post or not, you are certainly welcome to call me. I will take their phone call any time of the day or night if they got a question, hey, should I post this or not? But by the fact that they feel a need to call me, probably means that they're unsure of it. And if they're unsure of it, again, in my mind, thinking, hey, what is the worst way someone could perceive this? If you're unsure, then I guarantee you someone is going to think that reason that makes you unsure. They're going to think that, hey, they did this, I can't believe they said that. So it is always, always, always trust your gut, but always err on the side of caution. I said that's one thing I always tell our social media team. If you're not sure of how something is going to be perceived, if you think, oh, I'm being edgy, and there's a difference between being edgy and trying to go viral. If you think, hey, I'm trying to be edgy, I'm trying to stir up controversy for my brand, controversy may sell, but that's not a good social media strategy. Controversy will get you in trouble, and yes, you may get a lot of engagements. You may get ratioed on the comments. Not a good thing to get ratioed, I think, as we all know. So always, 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 the number one thing that I wish I could have told myself from the get-go is don't only look at it. Something that we used to do is we would look at things from a law enforcement perspective. So, for instance, we posted mugshots. That is something we did a lot of on Facebook and Twitter because, again, we're a law enforcement agency. We arrest people under Florida law, and I don't know what the law is in Tennessee, but under Florida law, mugshots are public record. We believe we had a duty to inform our citizens when an arrest was made because we had a law enforcement focus. We were tunnel vision law enforcement. Good arrest, good police work. We're going to tell the public about this. What happened was we started getting some social media feedback that we had never even considered because, again, we were law enforcement tunnel vision of, hey, these are people you have just arrested. And yes, you have probable cause to arrest them, but there is a difference between having probable cause to arrest someone and a jury finding someone guilty and removing their civil rights. The problem was, whenever we are posting someone's mugshot, we were blasting out there to the public for everyone to be aware of that this person had been arrested, which again, we may have had, and we did have probable cause for that arrest, but they had not been found guilty yet. They had not been found guilty by a jury of their peers. And not often, but often enough, those charges would be dropped. They would be found not guilty by a jury or their peers. And then we have now permanently put out there on Facebook and Twitter that this person had been arrested for this crime, even though they were later found not guilty or the charges were dropped. So we had never thought of what that non-law enforcement perception of that was. And that, like I said, that's the thing. Just always think about the worst way someone could take your post or your picture or your GIF. And I would encourage you not to just, so if some, I know we were just listening to a presentation on esports. Don't just talk to other people in esports. I said, that law enforcement tunnel vision, oh yeah, no, that's fine. I could talk to 10 other agencies and they tell me, yeah, it's great. Post that mugshot, absolutely. Talk to someone outside. Talk to someone that doesn't have that same tunnel and that same tunnel vision you do. So, hey, if you're not sure on something in esports, well, don't talk to 10 other esports teams. Go talk to a politician. Go talk to a sheriff's office and run it by me and let me have that reaction. Because getting tunnel visioned, like I said, we may think those are great things to post for a sheriff's office, but it's something that, again, in that perception that everyone else has and the worst way it could be perceived, we were missing that boat. So, other questions? Other? Come on, I still got 21 minutes, so.
Well, let me get real quick because some of these people, when they graduate, in theory, could qualify for a job like this behind the scenes. So can you talk a little bit more, first of all, define what PIO is, and then also how you're set up and so what would it look like if they work for you because they've now got a degree in advertising technology?
Absolutely. And so, so we are probably different than most law enforcement agencies. Actually, I do not always. So a lot of PIOs, which are public information officers, a lot of PIOs are former reporters. They're people that have worked for newspapers, for TV. I actually don't subscribe to that line of thinking. Our most recent PIO hire was actually a public relations and marketing strategist at Busch Gardens, one of our theme parks in the area. Because my view is I can inform anyone of what the law is. I can inform anyone of what the parameters of release or not are for public information and pursuant to media requests. but I can't train everyone in those thoughts of marketing. So our PIO, she understands what it is to run promotions, how to sell tickets, and again, how to build fans. But so that was an aside. So the way our system is set up, so we obviously have the sheriff. I have a boss who is the executive director of the office of the sheriff. Yes, so we have an office of the sheriff within the sheriff's office. So that's always interesting. So we have an executive director. I'm the assistant executive director, and then under me I have our 2 public information officers and our 2 social media coordinators. Our social media accounts are not run by our public information officers. Yes, they will post on there during breaking news events, but I believe they are 2 separate worlds that need to be treated with equal respect. The information we are sharing with the media and that public information side, we also need to have that consideration for social media. But I also, and you guys are all very fortunate, because how many of you would consider yourself growing up with social media? Show of hands. So that is a world. I'm 31 years old. So I didn't get my first Facebook account until I got accepted to the University of Florida, and I got my .edu email address. That used to be how Facebook worked. You had to literally have a .edu Facebook address to get an account. That was my first real introduction to social media, and I was 17 years old. Whenever I was 17, most of you were 3 or 4 years old. You guys have grown up with social media. You are not only fluent speakers, so social media is my secondary language. I have learned it. I am comfortable conversing in it and talking about it and playing around on the platforms, but I'm not a native speaker. You guys are native speakers of social media, and that is something that I am so jealous of you for, because there is a knowledge base you guys have that I will never be able to have, because you guys grew up with it, you guys have been exposed to it, you have seen careers rise and fall on social media, you have seen careers ruined or saved via social media. You've got all that institutional knowledge, and again, that is where with our social media team, they are both very young. Again, it's not, we certainly don't hire out of a certain demographic, but we find a lot of our social media applicants are younger, and so both our social media coordinators are in their early 20s. One of them is fresh out of college. She actually started interning with us whenever she was in college, and whenever she graduated, we gave her a job the very next day after she graduated, because there is that native speaking component to it. So something I'm very jealous of you guys on, actually. Other questions? Yes, sir.
So, like, is the success of your social media accounts, is it contained in Pasco County, or have you seen a change in attitude toward police and surrounding counties and the rest of the state?
So I can only speak for Pasco County, and I can tell you our change has been noted and fantastic. But the one thing I will say, as I mentioned, so we have a charity store. So for those of you who ever want some Pasco Sheriff swag, we have pascosheriffcharities.org/store, where we sell things like T-shirts, and we sell card packs of our canines. We have shipped items to all 50 states. If we could ship internationally, which unfortunately we can't, if we could, we would have sent it to Mexico, Canada, and all over Europe. So anecdotally, I can tell you the fact that we've had 50 states worth of people that are interested in just what's going on in the Pasco Sheriff's Office, I have to believe those same people are probably helping to support their local sheriff's office as well, and probably want to help that change in their communities too, by the fact that they are engaging with us, they're buying our merchandise, they're wearing it. It's amazing. I can't go out to dinner in Pasco County and not see someone in one of our canine hoodies or our Canine Association T-shirts. See someone with a magnet, slapped on the back of their car or what have you. That kind of support goes so far. Whenever you walk into a restaurant and you're a law enforcement officer, you are on high alert, because in that restaurant there may be someone that you had arrested before. There may be someone that you've had a negative interaction with. And whenever you walk in and you see people wearing our hoodies and our shirts, or you see cars in front of our bumper stickers, it puts them at ease, which then allows them to be more comfortable walking into that restaurant, more engagement as they walk into that restaurant, because they're not always looking over their back and wondering who's serving their food or who's cooking their food. But we hope that it's changing, and like I said, if our order sales or anything like it, we think it is.
I have a question as well.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you ever expect social media to be such a huge part of your job? And can you talk a little bit about your background and how you ended up here, / maybe some moves you made along the way that has brought you to this point?
Not even a little bit. So my background is entirely in politics. I am a poli-sci major. I am probably the only poli-sci major you will ever meet who did not do it to go to law school. I actually did it because I wanted to work in politics. So for several years, I worked in Tallahassee, which is our state capital, for state senators and state representatives. The state senator I was working for at the time, we have term limits in Florida, so you were able to serve 2 terms, 8 years. He was terming out, and I was uncertain if I was going to continue to be on legislative staff or I was interested in doing something different. As my boss at the time was the only former sheriff in the Florida legislature, we did a lot of work for criminal justice initiatives. We would always be sponsoring bills for sheriff's offices and the Florida Sheriff's Association, the chiefs of police. So I got a call one day that, hey, this guy, Chris Knocko in Pasco County, is looking for a policy director, essentially a government affairs director. Why don't you apply and see what happens? So I ended up getting the job. So for my first year in the sheriff's office, my role was entirely government affairs, which is still what I do. And as I was darting in and out before here, we're in legislative session right now in Tallahassee, so I still do the government affairs stuff. But that was all I intended to do whenever I came to Pasco County is be their government affairs person, work on those policies, things like that, and completely had really not had a lot of experience with social media or even media relations, aside from whenever reporters would call our office, ask questions about bills, or I did run a very highly successful, and if you haven't read it, you should, weekly newsletter called The Dean Document. None of you care about The Dean Document, but it was fantastic. So my knowledge of Twitter was literally posting The Dean Document once a week on Twitter. So whenever the sheriff said, hey, I want you to do this, I want you to kind of revamp our social media, I was completely clueless. And I said that's where all I knew was, as I looked at other Twitter accounts, I didn't want to just talk to other law enforcement agencies. I saw what other accounts were doing because I had seen people engaging with McDonald's. I mean, I think we all know it. There are people who put in their header, Justin Bieber replied to me or followed me or liked my tweet on X date, or Taylor Swift did this, that, or whatever with my tweet. I wanted to know how those people created those fans, and that's why I reached out to them. But 4 years later, here I am. I had no intention of ever ending up in social media or the media relations world, but sometimes you find yourself in positions you didn't expect, and then again, it's a cliche, but you never stop learning. So I had gotten my master's in government. I was perfectly content in my little world of government affairs and working on those policies and things like that in our state capital and our nation's capital. But then I found myself talking to people about who likes whose Justin Bieber tweets and who Justin Bieber follows. So you never know where the world's going to take you.
Any other questions?
No, thank you all so much. And I do know, so I don't have it on here, but if anyone's got any questions, if something that you think about tonight, like, oh, I wish I would have asked, or if you're watching the 9 p.m. routine night, why do they do that? My email address, it's cdaniels@pascosheriff.org. Feel free to email me. You can find me on the website if you didn't write that down. Email me, ask me questions. I am happy to help because I'm still learning social media too. I'm still figuring out what we're doing right and wrong and indifferent. So I'd love to hear from you guys. If you have some feedback, if you think, hey, why do you do that? Why haven't you done this? Let me know. I'm happy to keep learning too. So thank you all very much.